I would say to you, do you understand why? Do you understand how you had to be thinking in that moment in order to get angry and not some other emotion like
Hmm.
sadness or fear or guilt? How did you have to be thinking about that incident, somebody cutting you off, that produced the emotion of anger?
Oh, maybe I was like, if somebody cut me off and it was like just suddenly, it's like, oh my God, danger, danger. That person could have hit me, right? When they just go in front of me really fast, right? So I guess
Right?
that anger is provoked by a sense of um like danger that, something could have happened, something really bad could have happened if, you've been too
Yeah, that's
close or
part of it.
whatever.
That's one piece. That's one piece of it. But there's a couple other pieces that come first
Huh.
that you might not have focused on yet.
Okay, so focused on yet. So kind of lead me through
And
it.
again, and again, and again, you can't just tell somebody to focus unless you tell them what to focus on. Uh,
Right.
so let me tell you. So here's what here. In order to get angry, you have to be thinking in a very specific way. Now, a lot of times it's unconscious. We don't. It's not like we have these conscious thoughts. But for example, the first thing you have to do to get angry at somebody is to assume that what they did was wrong or bad or wrong in some way.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So
Okay.
somebody cutting you off in traffic, that was bad, right? They
For
shouldn't have
me?
cut you off in traffic, correct?
Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's dangerous.
yeah. So, well, and that's the second reason, because the other thing that if someone hurts you or harms you or hurts or harms somebody else, that's another component of anger. So the person had to do something bad or wrong. As a result of that, somebody was hurt or harmed or almost hurt or harmed.
Right,
Okay?
threat, right.
Right. And then there's a third piece to the puzzle of anger, and that has to do with blame. So the person is to blame for what they did wrong, for whatever hurt or harm they may have caused or almost caused in someone. And
Uh-huh.
it's usually not just any kind of blame, it's usually what I call unilateral blame, which means they are totally to blame.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right, right.
And you had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm,
Okay?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's very one sided.
mm-hmm.
Okay? So, for example, I used to do the exact same thing. I used to get very worked up in my car when people would cut me off in traffic. I used to honk the horn and, make all kinds of gestures and get all angry and worked up and everything until one day I happened to be driving down the road and somebody cut me off in traffic and I'm starting to get angry at them. And I realized I was going like 80 miles an hour
Mm-hmm,
when they
mm-hmm,
pulled in from an entrance ramp and
mm-hmm,
I was like right on top of them.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
realized like, oh, gee, I remember times when I was in that same situation where I wasn't being uncourteous or acting in a bad manner. I thought I had more time to get on the ramp, but I didn't realize the other person was going very fast, as fast as they were
Right,
going.
right.
So at that moment, I realized it wasn't a unilateral blame situation. I couldn't just blame that person exclusively
Mm-hmm.
for cutting me off. I realized that I played a role in the matter in bringing that on. And the minute I saw that, I couldn't stay angry with the person. Because in order
Mm-hmm.
to stay angry, you have to see that you blame in a unilateral way. You have to see that
Right.
person as almost totally responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in reality, a lot of times that's not how life goes. In that case, I played just as much of a role probably as the other person did.
Mm-hmm.
They misjudged my speed, but I was the one speeding. And if I hadn't been going 80 miles an hour, it probably wouldn't have happened. So, it's that kind of stuff. So, but those are the three components of anger. So anytime you're angry, you're always judging somebody to be bad or wrong. You're always judging that somebody could have been hurt, harmed, or inconvenienced, or was hurt, harmed, or inconvenienced, and that
Mm-hmm.
somebody was unilaterally to blame.
Right.
So those are three very specific thought patterns. And anytime you're angry, or anytime any human being is angry, I don't care who they are, what country they live in, what language they speak, if they're angry, which everybody has the capacity to do,
Mm-hmm.
you can bet that they're thinking in those three ways. Okay.
Right.
Now the real cool thing to ask is, okay, that's how I'm automatically thinking whenever I'm angry. Now, are those three things absolutely true?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're true,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm reacting as if they're true.
Mhm.
but it's all automatic. It's a knee-jerk reflex. It's a
Mhm.
habit of thought and perception. My body is doing it, whether it's right or wrong, or correct or not. Okay? Now, but I have an opportunity as a human being, now that I know where anger comes from, now that I have that specific self-awareness now of what causes anger in human beings, I can now take each one of those three components or causes and look at each one individually. Is it true they did something bad or wrong? We were talking earlier off camera, really off camera, when when we were talking about how you can judge somebody to be doing something bad or wrong when actually they're just doing it differently than the way you would do it. And there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. It's just different than how you would, and you automatically judge that to be a bad thing or a wrong thing. And in truth, if you stopped and asked yourself, did they really do something bad or wrong? And you have to say, well, not really. They just did it differently than I would do it. You know?
Yeah.
Same thing about hurt or harm. You get this automatic conclusion that somebody was hurt or harmed, but were they really hurt or harmed? You know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if somebody, let's say you've been functioning badly in your job, and you've been making a lot of mistakes, and you've been costing opportunity and money, and your boss comes down on you real hard and yells at you, and your feelings get hurt, and you get angry because your feelings got hurt.
Mhm.
Well, were you really hurt? Was that feedback that you were getting from your boss that you really need to, you know, improve your performance? It was harsh, but were you
Mhm.
really hurt in the process? Nah, not really. Yeah, your
Mhm.
feelings got a little offended, but you weren't damaged. It's not like somebody, punched you in the face or something. They a little harshly, criticized you, and that if you took that criticism to heart and improved your performance, you could be, better for it.
Mhm.
So is it true that you were really hurt or harmed by that? Yeah, you might be angry at your boss for coming down on you that way. But when you stop and ask yourself that question, did he really hurt me? Did he really do something bad by pointing out to me very severely that I'm not functioning the way I need to? Now, again, bosses can sometimes be overcritical and go over the top with that. But let's just say it was appropriate, that it was appropriate to be a little demonstrative, a little bit forceful in the feedback. You can look at that and say, well, I probably did, he probably really didn't do something that was wrong there. That's his job as boss to motivate me, teach me what I need to do, give me the feedback when I need it. And by the way, he didn't hurt me. Yeah, he didn't really hurt me. Yeah, I felt hurt, but he didn't really hurt me. So, like I say, you can take each one of those causes, and then was your boss unilaterally to blame for all of a sudden yelling at you?
No.
Did you have nothing to do with that? No, you had everything to do with that. So the
Right.
whole idea of unilateral blame, like, hey, I didn't do anything, I didn't deserve that. Yes, you did. You did a lot to deserve that. So
Mhm.
all three of those automatic ways of thinking when that person would get angry in that scenario, all three of them would be not really true. They would just feel true in the moment, and that's what would cause them to be angry. But if they knew what the puzzle pieces were and they could stop and look at it and ask themselves honestly, because you have to be willing to be honest about these things. Is it really true? A, B, and C. A lot of times you'll find out that one or more of those automatic ways of thinking, looking at things, are not valid, and then you got angry for nothing. And then as soon as you see that, you're going like, oh, then the anger's gone.
Mhm.
Literally, when I realized I was going 80 miles an hour that day, I could not. I wanted to be angry. I couldn't. I couldn't feel angry because I realized it wasn't that person's fault totally, that I played a role in it, and
Mhm.
that completely blew the whole story behind the anger that was driving the anger, and I just couldn't. It Disappeared in an instant. You know.
Right. Right.
So that is possible with emotions. It's possible to get insight into your emotions and to understand, become more self-aware of what the causes are in a very precise way. Okay,
Mhm.
in a very
Mhm.
accurate and precise way that can give you power over the emotions in certain situations that you might not have had it before. So that's why I love doing that with people, showing people how to do that, teaching them how to do that. And you can do that with almost any emotion. You can pinpoint the two or three specific ways of looking at things that drive that emotion, and you teach that to people. I even in a book that I wrote 20 years ago, I put all those things on index cards.
Uh-huh.
all the causes of like six of the most common emotional index cards, so that people can have them to practice with, so they can learn almost like training wheels on a bicycle. So you
Mhm.
can learn
Mhm.
what's driving your emotions, and
Mhm.
then once you learn that information, you don't need the cards anymore. You like taking the training wheels off the bike, and then you're just going through life understanding why emotions are happening to you and other people. Really kind of very powerful.